Not yet.
We are now, and we have a quorum, council member.
Oh, okay. Let's give the mayor a couple more minutes.
Okay.
So how many of y'all bought tickets for the Duke Mayo bowl game up in Charlotte?
I didn't even know they had a Duke Mayo ball game.
It used to be the belt. It used to be the Belt Bowl.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder what the payout is for that bowl.
Well, you know, they got so many people, sports channels now. They just need something to put on. You know?
Yeah.
That's what it comes down. I remember if you didn't have a winning record, you couldn't make a bowl. Now,
Right.
6-6, man, is, you know, act like you won a championship.
Hey, for us, that's okay.
Yeah.
6 was like
It helps us prepare for next year.
You know, it's getting that extra month of practice too. That's huge for these teams, and it's so ironic. You know, if you stink, you know, the teams that need the most practice, they don't get it because they don't get the bowl game. I mean, it's just so bizarre. But with some of these contracts that you're seeing now, with the big boys, I mean, college football, as we all knew it, is rapidly on the way out. I mean, it's the next thing to go is the NCAA. I think they're going to just kick the NCAA to the curb and turn it into pro sports, which it is. If you look at it,
Look at these kids, you know, signing these likeness and image deals. Like the kid Clemson signed $1 million deal with Dr. Pepper, and I bet they wish they had $999,000 of that back. You know.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's a different world. That's all it is. It's just a different world.
When I played, we used to get every month at Citadel, even on scholarship, you got $22 laundry money, which you didn't need. So it was like free beer money. And I tell you what, we lined up the minute you could get that. And that was like $22 bought a lot of beer back in the 70s, you know.
Mr. O'Brien, the statute of limitations does not expire. So remember.
I know.
I'm gonna talk to my attorney about that.
Yeah, I think you had. I was telling somebody about the cost of a 6-pack of PBR back in the day was like $1.25. We thought we were in hog heaven drinking that cheap beer back then.
On the other side of this meeting, once we get off YouTube, I'll tell you what Mayor Riley said. For $5, which you used to could go down to the market and purchase for $5 back in the day, but not now. Let me do is let's call the meeting to order, and we can get to some of the non-voting parts of the agenda. Call the meeting to order, and Councilman Shaheed, I'll lean on you for a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And let's remember that tomorrow is Pearl Harbor Day, and it's a day that we don't celebrate, but we commemorate every year that brought the United States and our fathers, our grandfathers, and many of our relatives into that god-awful war. And we remember those who died in that attack. And we think about them and we pray for their souls and for all of the survivors of that. In God's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes from October 11th.
So moved.
2021. Properly moved. And do we have a second? Councilman Appel?
Second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Acceptance and dedication of rights of way and easements. Mr. O'Brien, anything?
No, sir,
let's go
Mr. Chairman.
E1.
We have two, these are just notifications to DOT for our acceptance of non-standard material in the right of way. We usually see if we've got those with all the construction going on one every week. But the third one, I'm not sure. I don't see Julie on here, but maybe Chip knows. This is authorizing the mayor to execute a document for a permanent easement for some materials in the Carl Richardson Park for maintaining infrastructure. And this is something that legal counsel Julia Copeland had sent to us. Chip, do you know anything about that?
I don't. I apologize.
I know that they are, I'm kind of familiar. I go down there every now and then, check on this construction. They had to extend a water line
Yes, sir.
on Bender Street, actually into the park, actually cut into the right of way. I'm wondering if that has something to do with
That's what it is, and it's to allow for a permanent easement for that,
Okay.
that
All right.
water line. That's what it is. Yes, sir.
All right.
Do we need a motion to approve?
Yeah, I think we do.
I would so move.
So is that for E1, E2, or E3, or all of them?
All of them.
All right, Councilman Appel. Second. Enthusiastically seconded. All in favor? Would you please say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Temporary encroachments, Mr. O'Brien.
We have
Anything?
none this, this week, sir.
Okay. Now stormwater updates. I see Mr. Fountain on. Mr. Fountain, H1.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So H1 is a recommendation to approve a professional services contract with Thomas & Hutton in the looking at basic drainage improvement project options in the Sandhurst neighborhood. This is one of the small project allocation projects that was recommended by the committee previously this year. Price for that is $43,800.
Okay. Councilman Shade,
I would
think
move.
you have an interest in this one?
Oh, I very much so. Mr. Fountain and I have been exchanging with a concerned citizen over this and brought this to our attention. This is right at the edge of, on the San Rittenberg side of Sandhurst. It is a drainage problem.
Excuse me, Councilman Appel. Let me just catch the mayor up. The mayor just signed on. Mr. Mayor, we've approved the minutes and acceptance and dedication. And we're now on H1, which is stormwater management update. The first one is Thomas and Hutton drainage improvement in Sandhurst. So that's what Councilman Shahid is
Right. And so
commenting on. So-
Thank you for the update. I'm sorry to be late.
Oh, no problem, no problem. We thought we'd move on with some of the other aspects of the meeting.
Yeah.
Giving you time. Councilman Shahid, continue.
So I would urge the committee to approve this. This is vitally important for this project that we've been working on. I think, Mr. Fountain, this is in our second year of addressing this concern.
So you're right, Councilman Shade, the problem was brought to our attention in 2020. We kind of developed some ideas for what we could do. In 2021, we got it added into the small project allocation at the beginning of the year in the budget. So we've kind of gone back and forth with some professional service contractors looking at scopes and options. And now we have that proposal today to be able to basically begin looking at what's the right improvement project to build in that area as part of the small project allocation work.
So
Okay.
it floods rather rapidly with a good storm. It doesn't have to be a major storm, but a good rain will create flooding all along this area in that part of Sandhurst. So I've been working with Mr. Fountain on this for quite a while and would urge the committee to approve this. That's my
Okay,
motion.
it's probably moving second. Councilman Griffin just signed on, and we're on H1. Everything else being approved prior to this on the agenda, which is a small project in Sandhurst. It's been properly moved and seconded. Any more discussions on approving that small project? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any opposed?
Aye.
The ayes have
Mr.
it.
Chairman,
Yes, sir. Councilman Griffin.
speaking of small projects, I was hoping that on our next agenda, we could go ahead and approve that small project over in District 10, Mr. Hassel's house and this property. We've talked extensively about that. And I think that I'd like for this committee to go ahead and vote on that project as well to make sure that project's in our small budget allocation for 2022.
All right, good. Let's have it added to the agenda. Mr. Fountain, you know the one he's talking about.
I do, Mr. Chairman. And I would say the only point of it's not really a point of order, but a point of reference on this one is this was part of the approved this project was part of the approved 2021 budget. This is just the award of the contract. So I can certainly add an item into the next committee meeting to look at the 2022 budget options in relation to the project that Councilman Griffin's discussing.
All right, great. All right, let's do that. Thank you, Councilman Griffin. H2, recommended approval of professional services contract 39.5, Thomas and Hutton. Mr. Fountain.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is another professional services contract, again, on a project that was previously budgeted by the Public Works Utilities Committee for the small project allocation in 2021. This is just moving forward with the design evaluation for the project work, basically stabilizing canal bank, where we've had some progressive erosion during some of the hurricane events over the last few years of that canal bank towards a home foundation. And we're looking to obviously stop that progressive erosion by stabilizing that bank. So a very major canal over kind of in the Harbison Drive area near sort of Secessionville Road on James Island. I believe that's why Councilman Jackson is probably
Move for approval.
Second.
Probably moved and seconded. Any more discussion? Any discussion on that issue among councilmen? Call the question. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any opposed? Thank you. H3, recommended approval of a complete emergency repair, $62,006 by BNC Land Development. Mr. Fountain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is an after the fact emergency repair authorization, basically to pay the vendor who performed the emergency repair of a sinkhole at Amherst and America Streets related to a brick arch failure.
Right.
Move for approval.
All right. Properly
Second.
moved. Second, and any discussion on that repair? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Now I asked for this update on the doo-wop drainage improvements. One of the reasons I did that, Mr. Mayor, as you know, and I believe I copied everybody on this committee, at least. We've gotten 2 letters from an attorney by representing some citizens in the doo-wop area. Now, we know we're designing things, and we know that we're working in conjunction with the county to making improvements on that whole basin out there. I think one of our problems, concern I certainly have, is that the people, they really don't know what all is going on. So I think we need to respond. Obviously, we have the mayor and legal department, but not responding, I know, isn't the right tack to take on this one. So that's why I put that on here, an update of where we are on doo-wop, and hopefully what type of response will we have back to the attorney who is now representing, I guess, concerned citizens in this drainage basin over there. Some concerned citizens in this drainage basin. Mr. Fountain?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I know you did a good job summarizing how complicated it is to give a concise summary of a basin that's that large and what's going on in the basin, but I'll attempt a quick update, and then we can ask questions or more details if you have those to follow up.
That's fine, thank you.
And I'm going to try very brief. So the basin, obviously we had done the previous, what would really be a study, right? Looking at how did drainage work within the basin? Where were the flooding issues? What does the existing system look like? That was completed with the county a couple of years ago, really, as part of some of the West Ashley revitalization work, Plan West Ashley work. We took that, developed a series of 10 recommendation projects for infrastructure improvement that are considered what in the capital project world would be relatively straightforward projects. These aren't decade-long pump station projects. These are pipe improvements and drainage ditch improvements and conveyance improvements. We split out the first 4 of those, and the city and county put together an MOA where we agreed, or intergovernmental agreement, where we agreed to split the cost of the design work on those projects based on the proportional property acreages of each entity within the basin. So the city sits at about 75% of the parcels in the basin, the county about 25% of the parcels in the basin. That's the cost split. The city in 2020 allocated small project funding of $270,000 towards that work. And the county then contributed the other 25% into a $361,000 contract with AECOM towards design and permitting of those first 4 improvement projects. We've been working through those for the last probably 8 or 9 months at this point. We have a pretty good draft improvement plan, design drawings and draft improvement plan. So we're at the point now where we're in the easement acquisition discussions. It's not, acquisition is probably somewhat of the wrong word, but at least easement configuration discussions with 2 of the major property owners in the basin where much of this drainage goes through their properties. So basically what we need to do now is, and what we have been doing, is going back and forth with those property owners to figure out what they're comfortable with related to the designs that we've presented so that we can go back and basically do some redesign work based on whatever their input is on what they're willing to live with on their properties to be able to finish the design to a point where we can obtain permits and get into construction. You'll hear it say a lot of the time that property acquisition is always like half of a project once you get into it for public works and utility style projects, because their property acquisition is such a complicated process that it's such an impact to the owners. So we've been working through that for at least the last 3 to 6 months with these 2 property owners. Probably have another 3 to 6 months realistically before there's significant traction. And then we'd look to hopefully have permitting done by the end of 2022. Again, the design and permitting work is relatively straightforward at this point. It's mostly the easement acquisition work or the easement negotiation work. I'm happy to provide you more detailed updates on that if you'd like at some point offline or in a different setting and where we are with those negotiations. And then at that point, we've had some initial discussions with the county. We'll have to identify the funding for construction of those projects. And of course, we still have the other projects number 5 through 10 to look at from a design perspective that are not currently funded because they're reliant upon the first 4 projects being built to improve those downstream conveyances. We have also, as you think you're aware, Mr. Chairman, been working on some sort of shorter term projects in the area. Some of it has been maintenance. It's a very large basin, but working through some of the maintenance areas have been identified by AECOM as parts of the system that needed, basically were in poor condition. So we've been working through the county on trying to prioritize those into both of our maintenance programs. And then the county survey teams have been working with us to obtain some easements in some of the areas that aren't sort of the main focal projects to try to be able to come in and do better maintenance in areas that don't have easements currently. So the county surveyors have completed quite a bit of survey work, met with a number of the property owners and are currently trying to gather support for those easement dedications, including the area specifically referenced by the attorney's letter on trying to obtain those easements so that we can perform the regular maintenance to help out those communities.
Mm-hmm. Listen, Mr. Fun, I know our team, our people, and the county. As a matter of fact, you helped organize a meeting with yourself and other members of the county. I think it may have been, it was before COVID, but anyway, trying to give an update to a major property owner in that area. I think we should have some kind of official way of whether in form of letters or what going out to property owners in that area of the work that's being done. Everybody sees the championship fight, but nobody sees the practice and the road work that the boxers take before the championship bout takes place. And that's what I would describe what we're into right now. We're doing the road work and we jump in the rope and we're getting in shape, for the big construction projects to take place that will help this basin out. Because this basin affects, I don't know how many council districts. I know at least 3, but maybe 4. It certainly affects Councilmember Appel's district, Councilmember Shade's district, Councilmember Saccharin's district, and certainly the district that I represent, and may touch a little piece on Councilman Brady's district. So that's almost a quorum of council. So I know there's a lot of interest in this, but it's almost a cheap shot. Now, I don't mind that being online because I'll certainly be willing to tell that attorney myself that to say that we're doing nothing just flat out isn't true. So what all we're doing, somehow we have to find a way, I think, just to inform our the people in that area what we're doing, and hopefully what can be maybe expected moving forward. That's why I put this on here. I know things are being done. We know things are being done. The mayor knows action steps are being taken. But right now there's an information gap between what's taking place and the reality right now. I mean, that the piece that we're not doing anything is just not true. Mr. Mayor, I saw your hand. And then
Yeah.
I'll get Councilman Chie. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Just picking up your comment about information gap, and maybe you or Matt had some further conversation with Mr. Chard. But
So I didn't have any conversation with him. I just passed everything on to
Yeah.
you. I didn't have any conversation with him yet. But anyway,
one of my children moved not too far away, and so when I was visiting him not too long ago, I made a point to go down LaSalle Street. It's a very short street.
Right.
And looked it up. There's actually, as far as I can tell, unless LaSalle Street shows up somewhere else, only 4 properties on the street. One was a commercial property, one was a trailer park, for lack of a better description, and then a couple of home sites. So I think it would be helpful if Mr. Chard could provide us some more information about who was impacted. He mentioned $100,000 damage, which I would certainly like to know which property that was. It might help us to address the situation. He mentioned other streets as well without naming which streets. So I would just be curious to find out some more information from him as to where these specific things are, because as we've found out with these small projects that we work on, I know Matt has been working with county kind of on a more drainage basin level. They've identified the projects, blah, blah, blah. But sometimes if we know specifically the address, as we've just approved a couple of contracts here today, it helps us, fine tune some specific thing that needs to be done.
Right. I hear you on that. As I said, whatever you and the legal team wants to respond, Mr. To the attorney, that's fine. But I think again, the people in the area need to know what we're doing, and we're doing some good things. So that information gap, as a city, I think we can find some sort of communication that we can let. We had a charrette out there a number of years ago with the county and the city, and of course we had a lot of people to participate. And I don't know whether there's a lonely feeling out there right now thinking, boy, we had this great charrette. Whatever happened to that? Well, I think we should give an update to that. And we can just do that we've got the mailings and the things, we can do that. And I think there's 2 separate things, Mr. Mayor, responding to updating the people as to the progress that has been made, and then obviously, responding to the attorney. He wants to argue. We actually got action steps that we've done and we're doing and will do moving forward. That's the portion I want to get to the people. So anyway,
Okay.
Councilman Chie, you had your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just want to build on what Mr. Fountain had mentioned early on in his presentation, that this project is just vitally important for a lot of reasons, but it is fulfilling the mission of Plan West Ashley and within your district, the Epic Center. And we've heard that, this is one of the issues that they need so that their plans can progress with that. So it's vitally important for a lot of reasons. You mentioned a good number of them. Mr. Fountain's mentioned a good number of them. I just wanted to highlight what he said and what this means for fulfilling our mission with the Plan West Ashley and the Epic Center. And so we're on it. I mean, none of us are going to sit back and let this thing dangle out there and not get completed. We had a very detailed presentation of this project in front of the Revitalization Commission back in 2019. I think, Mr. Fountain, it was very technical. It was very inclusive. And so what is out there is extremely complicated because it's, I think the number of variables make this thing a little bit more difficult than our average project may be. I'm not an engineer by any stretch of the imagination, but that was my impression on this project. So it's just not a simple, we dig a hole and put a pipe in and voila, we've got the solution solved. It's much more intensive than that. And I do appreciate you bringing this up, Mr. Chairman, for discussion. So we've got a record of this. We can continue this discussion, but it's got our eyes and ears are on it, and it's moving. Maybe not as rapidly as we all like it to be, but it's moving, and that's what's important with this project. Thank you,
Councilman Appel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I don't know the ins and outs of this particular project and what's needed, but I might surmise reasonably that easement acquisition is a challenge here. And I think we've all got experience with those issues, and they can be very challenging. And to echo Councilman Shades and your comments, Chairman Waring, we need to be very engaged in the community outreach and advocacy around this easement acquisition process. I mean, because it really is going to take a community-led effort to make these things happen. Because if you've got a couple holdouts, they can really stymie this entire effort for years, if not indefinitely, because we all know we're not in the business of going around and eminent domaining, stormwater drainage easements. I certainly have not seen that since I've been on council.
No.
And, I'm not talking about putting anybody, publicly on blast, as the kids would say. But, certainly if, there's people that know certain, individuals or businesses that are holdouts, having the right connections, intercede and have conversations with people. I mean, that's what's necessary. I mean, that's what's been required when we've had our little projects in my district. So I just point that out there as well. We need to capitalize on the interest in these projects and let everybody know that the city cannot do this all on its own. It's going to take buy-in from property owners and, frankly, some flexibility and some good old-fashioned neighborly engagement / pressure to get things over the goal line in the appropriate cases. So that is a big piece of this. And I don't know how much of a factor that's playing into this specific issue here for MAD, but just wanted to throw that out there as well, because that's something that predominates not just this issue, but all kinds of other projects we've got around the city.
Right. Well, and the fallout would you throw into the mix, all of it's not even in the city. So, some of it's in the PSD, and obviously county and then municipal. But having a good discussion here, I knew we would have. I think the action step that I'd like to see is communicating a progress update to those in the district. And I know the mayor and the lawyers will find a way to respond back to the attorney who sent the communication. That is not as much the concern, bringing those people up. As a matter of fact, your point, Councilman Appel, as to the need for drainage easements, that's one way to let the people know. If we don't get these easements, we know the county will be able to do this as fast as it can be done if someone would come forward. Mr. Fountain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, I did want to add in, and I feel a little bit like Groundhog Day, because I remember having the same discussion at the beginning of the pandemic with everyone on this project, but we did also succeed in hiring a new stormwater outreach coordinator, which was a position that we had started just at the beginning of 2020. We had a lady, Rachel, who had worked in that position for a number of months, done an excellent job. She worked here for about a year. She left to go to MUSC at the beginning of this year, and it's taken us a little while to bring someone else on board, but we did hire Robin Kidd, who's been now on board for about a week and a half. So we're not quite up to speed yet on outreach, but that is exactly what I think you're speaking to, Mr. Chairman, that we need. That's why we created that position in the first place, and council authorized it, was to be able to get the word out about these projects that we're doing and what's going on and what the citizens can do to participate. So we are ramping up those efforts again to do more outreach and more discussion on project work that's occurring, because it is hard. I mean, these projects, on a capital project, on an efficient, relatively straightforward, large-scale project, you're normally looking at 3 to 5 years. And that's a hard time frame to not have updates and information being provided to residents. So I agree. We'll certainly work on that.
Okay. So, so some sort of communication we'll be getting together to mail out. Thank you. All right, and Mr. Mayor, I guess you and legal team will be responding to that attorney.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now Orleans Woods, I asked that to be put on because Orleans Woods is a neighborhood that drainage problem was created. It is not sea level rise, or it's not really. And I'll tell you why. I just happen to have grown up around that area, but Orleans Woods never used to flood. But that was before Ryan Condon built his, where the Crab Shack shopping center is, commercial buildings and parking lots. Even though it fronts on 61, it doesn't have a retention pond and it outflows through Orleans Woods. When the Southeastern Gallery building was built, again, it's front 61, but it's parking lot, commercial buildings, and it doesn't have a retention pond. It outflows through the residential area of Orleans Woods. There's a medical office park on Savage Road. So when you take a left on Savage and pass the Walgreens and go through that little S curve, about 40% of that parking, that medical office part on the right-hand side, believe it or not, outfalls through Orleans Woods. The Walgreens that I just alluded to on the corner of 61 and Savage, it has a retention pond, but the outfall is through Orleans Woods. A couple of years ago, 175 units of apartment complex built pretty close to my apartment here, in between, adjacent to Southeastern Galleries. All its buildings has a elaborate retention system underneath the buildings and parking lots. But the outfall is through Orleans Woods. A storage building, one of these self-storage places, just cut the ribbon on it sometimes last year, has retention, but it outfalls through Orleans Woods. There's about a 14,000 square foot medical office building down off of Wallace Road as you go to Ashley River Elementary. It has a retention area, but it outfalls through Orleans Woods. It is all of this commercial outfall. And if you were to say, well, what is it traveling through? The ditching that it outfalls in are the same size ditches as they were prior to all this commercialization outfalling through Orleans Woods. It's that additional water that's creating the outflow, going into very small tributaries or ditching. You couple that with the 1984 study that I think it asked for, I know it was at least 24-inch pipes, Mr. Fountain. It could have been 36-inch pipes that now have all this water is flowing through 12-inch pipes, getting to a major canal that leads to eventually out in front of the mall and to underneath 17 to the Stono. This area floods irrespective of whether we have low tides or not. And that's because you got forget about the water coming off the roofs and the driveways in the neighborhood itself. You have this convection of all these commercial add-ons, if you will. Because when you talk about this 175 unit apartment complex and 14,000 medical office building in the back and the self-storage building and the Walgreens, which is in the county, by the way, but they ran their drainage through. And the ditch I'm talking about, man, I can't tell you how small that ditch is. So we have a choking point. And the only way we're going to clear that out is make sure those ditches stay clean and upsize the piping, which I think is a small project, at least on that portion where the 12-inch piping is, Mr. Fountain, and going to Orleans Road. Well, to get to the main canal on Orleans Road. That's why when you get to Tablewood and Hazelwood Drive, there's a fire hydrant there. When we have the downpours, the fire hydrant is actually covered. That's how fast the water covers there. And we now have some senior citizens, one being Ms. Juanita Middleton near Tecklenburg, that she can't get in and out of her house. She's been there almost 50 years in that house. She literally can't get in and out of her house when that's how high the water gets. And again, as I said, this is I know we've been waiting on this because of the AECOM study, but we need some action steps on getting some of that water out there a little bit quicker. Not so much different than what Councilman Shahid just explained on over in Sandhurst. Yeah. So that's why I bring this up. I don't think we can wait on no longer. I've been patient on this one. I voted on a lot of drainage projects. I don't know if there's a drainage project I've ever voted against. But the Orleans Woods situation is one that we can take some action steps to get some of that water out. That actually, by design, a lot of that water should have never gone through there to begin with. Actually, some of the water off of 61 between from Wallace Road to Orleans Woods, the water off Highway 61 goes down into drainage and drains through that same neighborhood. It doesn't continue down parallel Highway 61. I've actually visualized that myself. Had the people come pull the manhole cover off. I thought, Mr. Fountain, some of that water from Southeastern Galleries actually went to 61 and on down 61. It goes the opposite direction and all the way through Orleans Woods to Orleans Road, that route. So that's why I brought that up. Some of the upsizing some of the pipes to literally get some of the gushers out of Orleans Woods. Mr. Fountain.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this area, the Orleans Woods area, is sort of the primary beneficiary of Project One within that DuPont WAPU list of 10 projects. That's part of the reason, as you mentioned, we haven't really done much in the way of short-term projects as we've been working towards this larger improvement. I agree with you that because of the time frame of the project, we can certainly try backing up and looking at, is there something we can do in the short run to eliminate some of those choke points? These get really hard for engineers, and I try not to sound difficult and technically irritatingly technical, perhaps.
Yeah, try to remember
one of the things we always try to balance is not causing like a worsened problem downstream when we add more water into an area that's already flooding. And I hear what you're saying from some of the observations. It sounds like there might be some choke points we could remove without worsening the downstream conditions, as long as we don't go kind of too far with it. So I'll put that on our list of projects that we basically go investigate during some rainstorms and have AECOM do a little bit of short-term modeling just in that immediate target area you're talking about, where kind of the ditches come together, and see if we can take out some of those smaller pipes and upsize those now. The real improvements, the major improvements out there will be when we do that. Project Area 1 basically improves all the pipes along Orleans Road that lead up to the kind of the canal and pipe system that ends up flowing through sort of the north side of Citadel Mall and curves around along 526 and eventually comes out under the interstate. Right. That's a major improvement project. That's again in those first 4 projects. But you're right. I mean, we're talking about realistically, until construction is complete, probably at least 2 years. You know, it's a multi-million-dollar project. So let me look at what we can do. And I hear what you're saying from a small project approach to try to relieve at least some of the worst choke point areas, even if it isn't an improvement to the whole basin, that whole portion of the basin.
And that's what I'm asking for. Thank you, Mr. Fountain. Mr. Fountain had endured that for the second time in less than a week. So, I mean, got great patience. But I wanted to share how that situation was created. It wasn't something that was created by Mother Nature. It was created by design engineers figuring out the most affordable way to design a project. Bringing it to 61 costs more. Running it through a residential neighborhood doesn't. So anyway, like as I said, it was definitely created. So there's some choke points we can do something with. Beyond that, any additional information to be brought? Councilman Chie? You're muted. You're muted.
And I'm glad you brought that up about Orleans Woods, and we just need to, as Mr. Fountain said, just keep that on track and with our small project, because these are the things that really impact our citizens directly. It may not be a huge project like Church Creek Basin or Calhoun West, but it does have an impact on our community. And need to see to keep on pushing that. One thing I would ask that you put on the agenda for next meeting is a revisit of our noise ordinance issue. I'm getting complaints from constituents in my neighborhood of the noise that travels across the river from Lowndes Grove. And it may simply just be an issue of making some adjustments over there. But I brought this to the attention of Dan, and he's been working on it, and I appreciate his efforts on doing that. But I don't know if we need to tweak the ordinance that we have in existence or just make some other kind of adjustments. Because that it's kind of odd, but the water travels the sound, and it's like it. Some of them, there's nice music. I kind of enjoy the outdoor concert, but some of my neighbors don't sort of share that sentiment that I do. So,
well, you got two of them. You got Lowndes Grove, and you used to have a problem out of the new county park right there off of Old Town Road, but I don't think you have as much of a. I hope you're not having a problem.
No.
So I'd be interested to see the action steps that the county employed to provide a solution to that. Maybe we can employ those over at Lowndes Grove. But there's another one that I don't know if we have anything to do with. That place called next to Jenkins Orphanage. There, it's actually in North Charleston, but it's right across the river. Where they have
the Pearl, not the Pearl, but it's she owns a property at
Susan Furman. But it used to be where the townhouses were, Mr. Mayor, off Azalea Avenue. Before you got to, remember they cleared out. You have the graveyard, and then you got the townhouse that they cleared out. Well, they have these concerts over there, and man, that noise comes across that river over into Sandhurst, and a lot of subdivisions on that side of the river, on the West Ashley side of the river.
That'd be Huntington Woods and
Huntington Woods, all of that. Ashley Harbor, all of that. So,
anyhow, we could just revisit that and maybe get Ms. Copeland back on here and Dan to have that discussion. I appreciate it.
Well, I think we should put it on, but I think we should also reach out to David Bennett and his team over at Charleston County Parks and Recreation and see what did they do on the park there. What's the name of the park off of Asham? Is it Asham Old Asham Plantation? That's not the name of the park, but off of Old Town Road, adjacent to Charlestown Landing. That was problematic, and I don't hear as many complaints as I did anyway. So,
they started the groundbreak on that, I think, early part of next year. So they're going to have a pavilion located in that park, and it's going to be a venue for events. So yes, that's the other issue we need to be taking up as well.
Okay. All right. We'll get that. Mr. Fountain, you get that on the agenda for us, please. Mr. O'Brien.
Mr. Chairman. Yeah, Mr. O'Brien and I will coordinate on that one, certainly.
Okay, great. All right. Beyond that, I think we're all in.
All right.
Any final questions? With that, we stand adjourned by acclamation and look forward to seeing you all tomorrow.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Bye.